MSU Denver makes a false claim about pro-Palestinian demonstrators escalating their protest. It wasn't protesters who blocked the doors of Tivoli Hall, it was police. Denver is about to sweep a camp of migrants who turned down an offer to go inside. An Aurora City Councilwoman calls for a second police chief to be fired in 2 years.
The incompetence of leadership in the Aurora Police Department has now caught my attention.
A controversial water pipeline project creates tension between the suburbs and northern Colorado. It'll be decided this week. And it's the loudest feedback we have ever received on Next. Denver police say that they will not sweep the pro-Palestinian encampment on the Aurora campus again unless there is an escalation. Well, today, MSU Denver's president falsely claimed that there had been an escalation, that protesters had locked the doors to the Tivoli Hall with zip ties. But it wasn't protesters that did that. It was law enforcement. MSU blasted out this misinformation in an online message from the president to the community titled, "Protesters Escalate Tactics." It said that protesters had entered Tivoli Hall and zip-tied the doors to lock the building, seemingly describing a situation like the takeover of campus buildings by protesters at other universities. But that's not what happened at Aurora. MSU Denver then quietly removed the part of their statement about protesters zip-tying the doors. When Next asked MSU Denver about that, they said that it was incorrect preliminary information and that posting it was premature. They later put up a correction. The correction does not note the source of the false claim. An MSU Denver spokeswoman tells me it came from campus police. We have a lot of questions out on this to campus police as well as Denver firefighters for the safety aspect. Denver police. We'll update you here on 9 News at 9 and 10 as we learn more. A group of migrants living near railroad tracks in Denver's Central Park neighborhood are going to be swept from that spot tomorrow. The city has offered shelter, and the people living there have refused it. Our Angeline McCall explains why.
The migrants here are not only fighting the elements.
Aquí es donde duermen los niños y yo con ellos todos.
They're fighting for a chance at stability.
Bueno, no es fácil porque uno no está acostumbrado a vivir así. Pero es lo que tocó.
Mandy Pimental has been at the Central Park encampment for a month with her 4 kids.
Con esto nos calentamos. Esto usamos para calentar.
Mandy wants to stay at this encampment, but the city has a planned sweep tomorrow because it's on private, railroad-owned property.
El día de mañana nos han dicho que tenemos que desalojar.
Denver Human Services says families here have been offered 30 days in congregate sheltering. All of those offers turned down.
Pero en mi experiencia aquí, como en Denver, en los refugios, no tan buenas.
Declined over distrust. Families here don't necessarily believe the offer will become a reality.
Yo no me da garantía que ellos me digan de boca vamos a un refugio. Si no me da un papel donde que yo diga, bueno, certifique que yo voy a estar 30 días, un mes, 2 meses en ese refugio.
Even advocates have different ideas of what's best. Some want people to accept the sheltering. Others want the city to improve shelter conditions before families accept.
My plan is to work in partnership with the mayor's office to figure out what we might be able to do to keep folks from being swept.
Councilmember Chantel Lewis is working to find a solution from feedback she heard today.
Ultimately, it's no different than a lot of the things that we hear from communities is that there's an ask to stay together, which I think is a perfectly normal ask that we hear from many folks who end up gathering in this way.
Families here want some kind of solution, one they can trust will offer stability that won't put them in an even worse position.
Voy a estar aquí con mi familia, con todos, y si mañana nos van a sacar a la fuerza, no sé dónde estar, si estar en un cuarto o también volver a otro sitio a acampar.
This encampment has been set up for weeks. It was run by All Souls, a nonprofit that is now asking people to move from the camp before the sweep tomorrow. Meanwhile, Housekeys Action Network has also been involved. They want those demands met, 13 in total. That would include, for instance, letting migrants cook at the shelter, creating more access to showers, and offering consultations for immigration.
You feel for the migrant families, though, that are getting different pieces of advice from different nonprofit partners who are all trying to kind of help in their own way.
Right, and ultimately you also have city partners like Vive and Papagayo, trying to also step in, offer resources. The city says that they have desperately tried to do outreach at this camp. A spokesperson says when they've been there, migrants haven't had water, for instance, so they wanted to step in. They've also offered resources like vaccine clinics. They say advocates, quote, have been preventing us from getting people inside.
That's not a good situation. All right, Angela McCall, keep us updated, please. A surprise call last night for the resignation of Aurora's interim police chief. It came from conservative city councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky, who's a vocal advocate for cops but a harsh critic of APD leadership. She's the one who led the charge to get another recent police chief in Aurora fired as well. Jurinsky did not explain just why she wants this second house cleaning at Aurora Police Department until she talked exclusively with our Marshall Zellinger today.
When Aurora City Council meetings end, the mayor and council members are free to give a report, essentially an open forum. This is how council member Danielle Jurinsky began her report.
The incompetence of leadership in the Aurora Police Department has now caught my attention.
She called for the resignation of the interim police chief and 4 specific police officers.
Until these 5 are no longer in this department, I'm not going to let this issue go.
She did not tell the rest of council specifically why she wants them gone, but 2.5 weeks ago, she posted on social media about being involved in a domestic incident. And today, she met with us to give more context.
I was a victim of a crime by somebody that I was seeing at the time.
Since her social media post, Jurinsky has debated talking publicly about the night that ended with her date charged with kidnapping, assault, obstruction, and criminal mischief.
I looked like I'd been assaulted. I mean, I had cuts on my face, I had black eyes, I had, welts. I looked like I had been assaulted.
Her comments at the end of the city council meeting are based on how she believes she's been treated by officers involved in her case.
Those 4 are the ones I had direct involvement with. The ones that were directly calling the shots on how this was handled.
The arrest affidavit detailing the police response to the domestic violence case remains sealed. Jurinsky is not shy about standing up to police she normally defends. She previously called for former police chief Vanessa Wilson to be fired. Last year, Jurinsky won a $3 million judgment after she sued Wilson's then-girlfriend for making false child abuse claims about her. Claims Jurinsky said were the result of her being critical of Wilson.
What I have learned in my time on council is that nobody seems to take notice until you become vocal.
Jurinsky has told me she's considering a civil case against the officers and that what she's concerned about is captured on body camera video. The city, in an emailed response, said it was limited in what it could talk about, but the chief extends her deepest compassion to all crime victims and said she appreciates officers' work in this matter.
Where could this go as a political situation, right, in terms of members of council, the city manager?
We know that the Aurora City Council makeup is in favor of the conservatives, so Jurinsky has friends on council that have stood by her with other issues with leadership. Since this happened last night, I'll have to be reaching out to those other council members to see where it goes there. If it becomes a civil case, that could muddy things up, but council still can direct the city manager who has power. Again, Aurora is a weak mayor, strong manager system. She has concerns also with the city manager, who would be the boss of the police chief.
Oh, boy. All right, Marshall, thank you. Today marks 5 years since 2 students entered STEM School Highlands Ranch and started shooting. This day, their classmate, Kendrick Castillo, rushed those shooters, giving his life to save his friends. Kendrick Castillo was one of 9 students shot that day. He was the only one killed. He was 18 years old, a senior, headed for graduation. Robotics was his talent and his passion. Shooters have both been sentenced to life in prison. Today was a day of remembrance at the school. Students painted rocks to create a mural in Kendrick's honor that'll go in Civic Green Park nearby. That's the spot where there will be a lasting memorial to Kendrick's heroism, which I should say was funded through one of your Word of Thanks microgiving campaigns. After Douglas County leaders asked for the public's help to put this together, Next Viewers covered the full cost, then raised another $30,000 to start a scholarship in Kendrick's name. For a decade now, there has been a fierce debate over whether to build a $500 million pipeline to carry water from Fort Collins down to Thornton. This week, it's up to 3 Larimer County commissioners. Our Mark Salinger has that.
This water north of Fort Collins is at the center of a decade-old battle between growth and preservation. The Poudre River fills these reservoirs in Larimer County. 70 miles south, Todd Barnes with the city of Thornton says they desperately need the water to sustain a growing population.
Water is critical to everybody on the planet, and it's critical to this city.
The Thornton water pipeline would pump water the city owns the rights to in Larimer County down to Adams County. 85% of the 70-mile project is either completed, under construction, or in design. The remaining 15% is in Larimer County.
We need the first 10.4 miles permitted so that we can build the water pipeline and get it to connect in Weld County.
Tomorrow, Larimer County commissioners are expected to vote on whether to allow the pipeline to move forward. Commissioners already denied a previous version of the plan back in 2019 over environmental concerns, questions of land rights, and public feedback about the lasting impacts.
We need the final connection.
The new plan for the pipeline follows a different path, only crossing 10.4 miles of Larimer County instead of 27. It still hasn't won everyone over, with people at the commission meeting recently asking to prioritize concerns for the river's health.
But we're really asking for is a pause and a timeout so the community's questions and concerns can be heard.
Thornton says it can't grow without water. 3 commissioners will now decide whether the final link connecting that water to Thornton can move forward. Thornton is Colorado's 6th largest city and is growing quickly. The city says without more water, it can't build more housing. People against the plan want to leave the water in the Poudre River through Fort Collins and allow Thornton to take it out downstream, arguing it would preserve the health of the river more, Kyle.
This has already been litigated, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thornton sued Larimer County back in 2019. They lost, then an appeals court ruled on it again in 2022. Needless to say, there's bad blood between all of this. It's gone on for a decade now, potentially resolved on Wednesday.
All right, you'll be watching. Thank you, Mark. The city of Denver looks to buy part of a church to keep doing what the church has been doing there for months.
It's one thing to put a plant in the ground, but it's another thing to have somebody use it and eat it and engage with the space.
Denver Urban Gardens is tooting their own horn, and you know they should, because their work is expanding food to anybody that can just stop, pick, eat. That's next. The city of Denver is looking to buy a church's gym as a possible long-term option to house migrant families. That's actually how the gym has been used now for months, with Denver Community Church in charge of that operation. Mayor Mike Johnson's administration wants to spend $4 million to purchase that church gym on Zunai Street, which they say can be used to shelter up to 120 people at the time. This comes as the city is drastically scaling back services provided to newly arriving migrants. The city is swapping its large hotel-based shelters for smaller, short-term shelters, as well as a longer intensive program to help a limited number of migrants at a time. The city says it would be using existing migrant support funding to buy that church gym, and they also mentioned it could later be rezoned to residential use if it's no longer needed for migrants. Kathy Sabin, the cool down was for real today.
Oh, and just wait till tonight, Kyle. We have the wind slowly decreasing. We go into a frost advisory later this evening and a freeze warning to the south where plants will need protection from the cold. And even as those winds continue to blow, the high wind warning is canceled out. Temperatures today in the mid-50s for Denver, but 80s in southeastern Colorado. That frost advisory covers Denver, Fort Collins, Greeley. The freeze warning covers Parker, Castle Rock, Kiowa, and Elizabeth for temperatures to 27 to 30 degrees tonight. So coverage of the plants and pipes a good idea. We're still tracking some extremely gusty winds over the northern Front Range foothills, east of Akron and Lyman, outside of DIA. And now the winds are starting to ramp up in the southern mountains and foothills. The high wind warning is canceled, but fire danger remains high with the red flag warning out this evening. Humidity values have been running 8 to 10% on the plains. But look in the mountains. It's May and it's snowing like crazy. The winter weather advisory has been extended out until midnight because the snow is coming down, and I-70 has been icy and snow-packed, all kinds of issues all afternoon, and we expect that to continue for another 4 or 5 hours tonight. Futurecast will show the snow showers coming to an end. We get a partly sunny day tomorrow, a break break tomorrow before the next storm, and that storm brings showers to us on Thursday. A cold night tonight with 30s for eastern Colorado, teens in the high country. And this evening, temperatures are pretty comfortable as the wind comes down. Again, Wednesday's your best day, cooler with showers Thursday, and then a beautiful Mother's Day weekend, sunshine and 70s for Saturday and Sunday.
So it's sort of like a public park with food.
Garden that's become a one-stop shop for anybody who's seeking a shady spot or a snack or both. Denver Urban Gardens has more than 200 community gardens dotted around the metro area, places where people plant food to eat, donate, share. A couple of years ago, they started a new program, creating spaces where anybody can just come up and grab a piece of fruit right off a tree and learn about what it took to grow something there.
I think my favorite thing about this initiative is the opportunity to take neglected areas and to completely transform them. I'm Creighton Hoppeditz. I'm the Director of Permaculture and Perennials for Denver Urban Gardens, and I'm in charge of our Etkin Family Food Forest Initiative. A food forest is a public access space using trees, shrubs, and vines that work together and improve soil over time, add ecological diversity, and reduce maintenance over time. So it's sort of like a public park with food. We have over 20 of these sites all around the metro area. This space, like all of our food forests, is really reflective of the neighborhood. So I don't want to give the impression that you'll find goats at every food forest, but at the Barnum Food Forest, one of the community members manages goats here. Things that we prune out of the food forest, we can actually feed to the goats, and then as their manure composts, we can put it back in. So there's a really good symbiotic relationship going on here. These are some small pear fruits that have just formed. As these pears ripen, anybody can come through and harvest the fruit. We want anybody to be able to come through and harvest, even if you haven't spent a minute of time here before. We're communally managing it and having it be public access. And then what we're here to do is to make it possible by establishing the relationship with the landowner, providing water, and providing access, skills, materials to grow food in community. It's fundamentally about empowering communities to adapt these sites to be something that serves them and their neighborhood.
That's cool, creating new spaces in our cities. Tonight's viewer feedback deserves a response that honestly, it's going to sound a lot better from them than it will for me. Thank you. Thank you. We're back with your feedback next. We finish with feedback tonight from a less than satisfied next viewer, an Instagram comment from Jeff in Brighton. Jeff writes, "If bull was music, you'd be a brass band." Ladies and gentlemen, and Jeff, Denver's own Gorilla Fanfare.